right, Spider Load.
It's the deal, 2C's. Cam Capone, my boy.
Man, how you been lately? It's been a
Man,
while.
my answer is often and almost always abundantly blessed. That's why I push JITA, which is an acronym for gratitude is the attitude. It's a mind frame I attempt to stay in constantly, man. So I've been blessed. How about yourself?
Man, I've been doing good. Things been doing good. Business doing good. Staying busy, grinding.
And one thing I know about you, up, down, in, out, off, or on, your voice is gonna keep the same exact tone. You never let it. You never know. So I got you with a smile now, but yeah, I be trying to master that poker face too, man. But I'm glad to know you're doing well, man. Appreciate you inviting me back to your ever so quickly growing platform, man. I'm glad to be a part of some of your earlier days, and I appreciate being included as you have, developed yourself as a powerhouse online and just keeping it real and keep including me, man. It's much respect for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Respect to you too, man. I appreciate you always coming back, man. You know what I'm saying? Always dope content every time we link up.
That's one thing I can't admit. We do seem to create magic and interest, so I salute that.
For sure, for sure. Well, I thought I would start off with some West Coast news, man. And this has been something that's been going on for a long time, man. Dude's been in the news. He's did a lot of interviews, man. This has been a topic that, is forever been talked about. You know what I'm saying? Keefe D. He gets his house raided in connection with the murder of Tupac. What did you think when you first got the news?
Well, see, I really don't have an interview industry public reaction to that subject matter based on the fact that Lil Keefe D, who happens to be Keefe D's son, he's about 30, 31 years old from Southside Compton Crib, is my low, my personal friend, it's my little homie. Lil Al from Southside Compton Crib, Mike DeRoe, also like a family member to me, amongst a lot of other Southsides. Free my cousin S Loke, Stay Sloke too, who just recently got arrested from Southside. I have a relationship with the Southside Comptons that causes me to be less than involved in every moment of the Keefe D drama. But just being generally aware of it as everyone else is, uh, I can assume that a lot of his conversation on the subject matter has caused him to fall in the spotlight. And perhaps he could have served himself better by being less vocal about, you know, the whole incident in general.
It's been a long time, man.
27 years is a long time.
It's kind of crazy to think that they could actually get enough evidence after all this time to actually do something, but they say an indictment is actually coming.
Well, maybe it's indicative of the idea that there's no statute of limitations on that particular crime across the board. So maybe those that understood the way these things potentially develop over time, maybe that's why they put that stipulation in place.
Man, it's true, man.
But then when someone is also a candidate for compassionate release and their health is challenged and they're at a certain age and their freedom has been prohibited indefinitely, there's really no telling what you can get out of an individual, bro. Well, I'll just say that. It's like when desperation kicks in, I think is where we get the more common occurrence of us being shocked by people who we expected certain things to happen and they operate outside of that. I think desperation has a lot to do with it often. I think Keefe D was just desperate. Rest in peace, Baby Lane. Free my nigga Lil Al.
Well, it's gonna be interesting, you know.
You think that they did enough right now, or they're interested enough, or there's enough available for him to lose his freedom. Is he incarcerated?
Not yet, not yet. But
I have a hard time believing that, 2.5+ decades later, they're going to be able to tie him up if they haven't been thus far.
that's what my thoughts were. But I started to think about it a little bit. You have him doing interviews about it, which he wrote a book about it. And then I'm hearing they got witnesses. They got people that is going to put him in Las Vegas. I don't know if anybody that was there when the shooting actually happened is going to testify, but I do think other people are going to be testifying.
One thing I've accepted from jump and always believe and maintain is that he benefited from the authorities accepting a fictional account of what took place. I believe he sold a story similar to how Hollywood sells stories. It may have been loosely based on factual events, but I don't believe he actually delivered a solved crime the way it's been classified. He just satisfied those that were interested and they bought into a story, but I don't believe to a large degree his account um, that he has given, which has been widely accepted, I don't believe that's the account of what took place that night. So I look at it from a different perspective than a lot of people because they believe he's actually telling what happened. I don't agree to that. I don't believe that. I believe he was successful in selling a story to the authorities that he was able to benefit from, and they bought it.
That's interesting. Well, the reason why I believe it, I'll expand on that a little bit, man, is because I feel like he was put under so much pressure, and that if he got caught in a lie in any way, shape, or form, him and his family members and everybody else that was involved in I believe it was heroin or whatever drugs that they caught him selling, everybody was going to jail, and he was going to jail for life if he got caught in a lie on that proffer agreement.
Which, when we come to absolutes, guarantees, and 100%, 100% of being exact, still does not eliminate the possibility he sold them a script, a story. I mean, you described a very difficult task, not an impossible one.
It's true. I mean,
why would we appreciate the story of Kaiser Sose if there's not somewhat an inch of us that believe it can happen? We wouldn't give a about Kaiser Sose if we didn't believe a little bit that there could be some reality in that. It'd be bullshit. I believe in Kaiser Sose. I believe in the boogeyman on my mama. Especially when there's cameras out here and there's still a whole lot of unsolved crimes and dead bodies. I believe in Kaiser Sose and the boogeyman. And I believe Keefe D at one point in this situation in particular had a fly play going on. I believe he was able to take advantage of a fly play. I believe once he got released, that should have been the end of his commentary on the subject matter, though, period. I think he should have never spoke on it, similar to OJ. And OJ having to take some retribution for it. I just saw, you're going to know the name. What's the dude's name? BDB Savage?
BTB Savage, yes.
Sometimes you got to take your W, shut up, and get on.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, man.
Think about OJ. What if I did it? He did a book similar to that, right? OJ.
I think he just did an interview talking about the murder.
He wrote a book that was entitled something as "If I Had Did It."
So, you're talking about OJ?
OJ.
Yes.
And then you think about, who were we just talking about before I brought up BTB Savage?
Keefe D?
All that talking after you hit the lick. Then you think about BTB Savage. When you hit the lick sometime, you gotta shut up. You gotta shut up after you hit the lick. Just shut up.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. The interviews will be what does him in for
Shout out
sure.
Lil Keefy D. Shout out my nigga Lil Al, Free Mike DeRoe, and Big Mike DeRoe Sr. and Jr. My mama. Rest in peace, Baby Lane. Free Stay Slow. Southside Compton.
Well, some of the other news that's been going around, and I think you might have touched on this a little bit, is there was a guy who says he was a Crip and he was openly gay out of Texas. And he came out, he started doing interviews and, started talking about, what his life was like. What'd you think when you first seen that?
I have a wide range of thoughts. I'll start with my personal thoughts. Man, that's boo bullshit, man. We don't with nothing like that, man. Oh my mama, cuz who called cuz a Crip? Where his cripping come from, cuz? What the hell's going on? This some internet shit, man. Some out of town weird shit, man. This shit ain't real. Let me see. So my introduction to it, I went into it from a comedic understanding off top. This is a joke. This is some trolling, some funny shit. Then my mind says, hey, these days people can push adult sexual preferences upon minors. So I was like, ain't no telling what's really going on. This might be really something that people are trying to push and accept. I've also, in my own personal experiences growing up in the streets, being in gangbang functions where I've seen people of his persuasion participate on a level we wouldn't expect. All these thoughts were going through my mind. However, once it became viral and I chose to speak on it, I spoke on it from the perspective of there was certain people with online presence expressing that not only Brick Baby, but C-Mac deserved a DP. And if they homies from 60s, and not only 60s, but from 5-5 neighborhood, did not take responsibility for DPing them, there was one particular Compton Crip blogger, I say Crip with quotation air marks because this particular individual has been witnessed on Instagram putting his blue rag into the trash can saying he's no longer a Crip. But I'm not going to be the Crip god to pass the final judgment on that. But years later, he called himself standing in judgment of two other Crips on the internet for having interviewed this said individual from Texas that's supposed to be whatever you just described him as. And what happened was, because I know all three of the real Crips from out here involved, the Compton cat, the nigga from 60s, the nigga from 5-5, when the homie from 5-5 and the nigga from 6-0 interviewed the Texas Hoover alleged rainbow blue rag, the homie from 6-0 called me on FaceTime and asked me, was I cool with the cat from Compton? And I had just went out my way to mend the relationship that myself and the cat from Compton had that was negative for almost a half a decade or more. It was over a half a decade. That he initiated the negativity. And then here it is. I went out my way when I saw his presence upon the internet. I went out my way to squash that. Just so happened, Brick Baby a few weeks later hit me saying, hey, ain't you cool with old boy from Compton? I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. If you'd asked me that 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have said that, but what's up? All he asked me, neighborhood to the neighborhood, all Brick Baby asked me was, can you pass him my number? I understood that recently the person from Compton has spoke in regards to the interview that C-Mac and Brick Baby did with the Texas dude. So I just know why he's asking me to pass the number. He didn't speak on why. He didn't go into no details. He just asked me, ain't you cool with cuz? I'm like, yeah. He said, can you pass him my number? So I did just that. I passed the number to the Compton cat. And I said, the homie said, holler at him. He responded with a message saying, for sure, as soon as I get out the dentist. Some hours later, that was like 11 a.m. that day. Around 4 p.m. that day, the Compton cat called me and gave me basically a summary of his conversation with Brick Baby. And it was about Brick Baby's reaction to him getting disrespectful about the fact that him and C-Mac interviewed the Texas Hoover Rainbow dude. So he just gave me the rundown. Mind you, this is a newly cool relationship that I initiated with the Compton cat that he never showed interest in being cool with me. I just reached out after he was disrespectful years ago and we cool. So I'm thinking it's a very sensitive relationship that two real motherfuckers is going to respect to the end. So he's giving me his take on the whole interview. And I was honest with him. I said, I feel where you're coming from. I was like, but I think you went a little too far by saying they need to take Crip off their name. And that if they homies don't DP him, when you see him, you're going to do it. He readily agreed with me. And he was like, well, that's cool. Just go on your platform and say that, and that'll give me the alley-oop to go ahead and do a public apology. So I have receipts that, as they call them, text messages where I show Brick Baby, you ain't got to say nothing, cuz going to apologize publicly. That was just my next communication. However, when I took it upon myself to go publicly and address the issues, I was a little more colorful with my message than I have been on the phone with the Compton cat. I told him my sentiments, but when I went to the public and I kind of like acknowledged him, I used examples of why we can't stand in judgment of the homies based on some of his reputable homies from his hood that we all respect, that are rest in peace, that had certain tendencies. I said, if we're going to not take Crip off of that name, how can we skip over and take Crip off the homie's name just for having an interview? And that was my logic. And when I included that, I've learned through other individuals, he was offended to the point where instead of doing a public apology, he went the opposite way and tried to convince the internet that there was some type of dynamic between he and I other than peace. So my involvement in the homies interviewing old boy, that's where it landed me personally. I went through that whole roller coaster, just giving my opinion to someone personally, then them inviting me to share that same opinion on the internet. It turned into somewhat of the internet audience thinking that somebody is mad at me. Perhaps he is mad at me, but I'm not mad at him though. I don't know if I switched the subject or if I answered the question correctly or not. My bad, 2C's. And he from 2C's. Yo name 2C's and cuz claim 2C's.
No, that was good. Yeah, Brick Baby, Crip Mac,
Night Bud to the Night Buds. To my homie Brick
when-
Baby and my homie C-Mac.
Did the interview on No Jumper with him.
As much as I support the decision that the homies made, I would not have conducted the same interview as an individual, just to be clear.
I interviewed Crip Mac that same day. And Crip Mac walked in and told me, he was like, yeah, I just interviewed a gay Crip. But he didn't tell me that it was on No Jumper or with Brick Baby or that it was like a big deal type of thing, you know? And so I was surprised as hell, you know? We talked about it a little bit when I interviewed him.
My surprise in regards to C-Mac only comes for the fact that we have a term that we've never heard that is a household name in our culture now. Starts with an S, it ends with actual. The fact that he was so successful in coining that phrase, it was just an extreme shock to not only see him enjoy a peaceful environment with a person from that affiliation, but then one of the classification that he created. You feel me? That was just the biggest shock in the world. And I tried to make sure I was honest enough to express my shock without passing judgment on the homie, because I see the big picture. I see why, where, and when he did it. And it's something that I would have advised him to be able and willing to do long before he was apparently willing to do. I had wished he would have been way more early to the lack of dissing and coexisting. That's late to me. If you look at my first interview with him, you can go see it on my platform, Spider Look Most Easty on YouTube. I was pressing growth and the lack of the dissing. I was trying to show him way back then that the tattoo has said enough once it was inked in. He does not have to keep adding on to those expressions. So the fact that he has shown some maturity since his most recent release and trying to express himself minus a lot of that, I applaud that. But I was something I was hoping he found out a long time ago.
Yeah, Crip Mac has definitely grown. That's for sure. You can't take that from him.
And when somebody jumps off the porch, love you, low, but when somebody jump off the porch, technically would be considered late. You can expect to see some later processes of the natural process too. Validation and all that. Because it's been concerned how people view him. Based on the fact that he's had a somewhat of a microwave experience in becoming a young banger to an OG that's trying to kick back. It's kind of hard to do on the camera in front of everybody when your success is moving a lot faster than your regular experience, because your regular experience kind of dictates you go through certain steps at a slower pace and they naturally accumulate it. But when you becoming a star, you becoming famous at the same time, you have to learn how to balance the both. And when you see Mac, you get caught up with trying to be like, I'm still in the middle of trying to do this, but I got this going on. And he need the right people in his ear, let him know it's okay to let this go. It's nothing. You already seen what that'll get you. County jail, penitentiary, adversity. That's it. Being the other side of you, the Trevor side, sky the limit, my love. Neighbor. But you gotta mix it. Don't let the bullshit go. You gotta stick to the bullshit, but you have to be as calculated as I know you are smart enough to be. They think you a fool. I know you a fool and not a dummy. We all fools, the real ones, but we ain't dummies.
For sure, for sure.
Fight show,
it is, man.
fight show, fight show.
In some of our past interviews, we touched on Quando Rondo dropping his flag.
Did we?
And recently, not too long ago, he got arrested on a RICO. And a lot of people believed that he dropped his flag to avoid the RICO. But he ended up getting arrested for it anyway. You know,
I did that because I have long stood out on the internet as being Spider Low, infamous for being the most crippin' whatever, banged out, ignorant, whatever. I've been made it clear and made it my business to express that I am a very, 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 very former, long ago gang banger. I've tried to make it extremely clear to everyone that may fall under the sound of my voice that any active gang participation that I've ever experienced has been far, far, far back in my past. And my main motivation was not to make that fact apparent to the masses, but it was to make it apparent to the authorities that I knew isn't cut, paying attention to everything that goes on this internet way before it became apparent or obvious. When I was signed to G Unit at a time, and as a creative, I was pushing G Unit Crip. I could recall way back then, before we heard of a rap label getting a RICO, I remember 50 Cent telling me like, hey, yo, B, in referring to the authorities, they believe you with that G Unit Crip shit, B. The hip hop police was going through New York, barbershops, mixtape shops, snatching all of my DVDs off the shelf and things of that nature way back then. So as I saw what Takuchi was able to bring about with the feds, with the 9 trades, and I see what Young Thug went through in the numerous RICOs. Then free the homie Doc Thone from 6ix9ine. I see what one of my G homies from my hood went through since then. You know, sometimes you think you missed out on something and you wish you was participating in it. And then in the long run, you see what the creator was saving you from. I perhaps was on my way headed to be the first hip hop RICO situation versus the one who didn't get it. So yeah, I'm very familiar with how they throwing them RICOs around, and it kind of like explains the way I present myself to a large degree, even though they weren't even doing it back then. I was just wise enough to see the climate of things and know that it would be far better not to be associated with any current type of gang activity if you're going to be an individual such as myself that has been historically affiliated with one of the most notorious gangs in Los Angeles. And I've never been a follower in my life. I've been a leader in every environment that I found myself in. So as a public figure and a leader in such with such affiliations, I always deemed it wise to separate myself from my adolescence experience as a adult. I don't understand why others don't see why it makes the most sense. I guess that what separates real ones from clout chasers.
Well, you're also older though too.
And I hate the way
know.
you said that, but yes, I am.
You
47,
know,
blessed to see 48 on my next birthday, which will be in January if the creator's so willing.
yeah. You know, I've learned a little about the RICO, and I've learned that you don't even necessarily got to be from a gang to get indicted on a RICO.
Affiliated.
If you and a couple people start committing crimes together, you are now eligible for the RICO. Like, they've rigged the system.
And it's deeper than what you just said, because you don't even have to commence to committing crimes. With the conspiracy word, all you have to do to be able to prove is you were aware that certain crimes were potentially going to be committed prior to them being committed, and you can be effectively tied into a conspiracy.
Man, they rigged it. It's rigged, man.
Definitely rigged. And for those in the YouTube verse, the comments, and who don't seem to quite understand the reality of certain people's lives, you can never motivate me to react to your satisfaction based on things of this nature that y'all don't even tend to consider that are on the table when it comes to being on these platforms or presenting yourself as a public figure after you've been a stumped down outlaw, convict, ex-con, enemy number one, gang member. Now you're trying to present yourself in another aspect. You guys don't even understand half the ramifications that exist. And I'm not here to teach you or to try to prove to you I'm other than what you assume. I have to just move accordingly to what benefits those that matter to me, my children, my family, my grandchildren, things of that nature, and let the chips fall where they may.
Wack100, you know.
Ho100, what's happening? Man, you know what? I'm going to say this real quick. You mentioned Wack100, and for most people that are aware of my internet presence, they would assume that Wack100 and Boskoe100 would be equal energy recipients for myself. But since you just mentioned Wack100, I want to take the moment just to shout out Boskoe, shout out Big Court, and shout out Alex Alonso. And because through Big Court and Alex Alonso, Boskoe and myself found ourselves being man enough to communicate today and bury the hatchet of a lot of the bullshit that the public has seen us experience on the public platforms. Who was right or wrong, who started it, who wasn't. We went through all that, you can imagine. But we got to a point where it's as if none of that took place. And I don't mind being the first to announce that you shouldn't anticipate any negativity or disrespect from myself or Boskoe one toward another from this point forward. So Shout out to the Damu Bosco from Inglewood on my mama. But what's up with holding on 100 though?
You guys recently had some things. I think you said that he doesn't put on for Pacoima, and then he responded to that. But he basically tried to say he didn't know who you were on No Jumper. He was on No Jumper. Adam kept trying to tell him, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know you know who Spider is, you know, but he wasn't, admit to knowing who you were.
Yeah, there was someone throwing some allegations toward him that kind of brought his masculinity into question. And I find it highly ironic. The first response to that individual was, who? He acted like he didn't know him as well. So we know how dishonest that is in regards to me. It caused me to suspect it perhaps may be equally as dishonest in regards to the individual that he was referring to with the rainbow allegations. However, my point that I was making was Holding on 100 goes out his way to represent himself as an expert on activities that take place in Compton, Watts, and South Central Los Angeles in particular. And what I was saying was, the point I was making was, people, if everyone from Southern California felt that way, we would not know, Long Beach wouldn't be on the map the way it was. If Ice Cube didn't separate from NWA and feel that way about South Central wouldn't be on the map the way it was. I was saying how people from Gardena, even my homies from East Coast that's from Carson, do not go out their way to try to affiliate themselves with Los Angeles. They bang DA. They very proud of DA. Trey 57s, just equally as close, if not closer to Los Angeles or Compton than the Pacoimas. You never hear them trying to claim Compton or LA. And I just have always been confused how someone with so much exposure gives such little exposure to the actual environment. The essence of who we are is, no matter how unpopular my actual section is, when I get some shine, that's all you're going to hear about. And he doesn't seem to possess that pride in his actual environment, because as he has become one of the most popular people on the internet from Southern California, he seems to try to associate himself with Compton and South Central versus promote and associate himself with the actual environment that raised him, which is Pacoima, San Fernando Valley, far from the actual environment that niggas rap about. But he seemingly is invested in convincing the majority or the masses, the audience that is not aware like we are, that there is something other than that going on. Like he's really tied into Compton and LA, when I know, you know, he know, and she know, the only thing he know about Compton and LA is what he has been told. Wack can name to you every time he's been to Compton on one hand. And you know what I find real funny about Wack100? He'll be on Club. I was trying to recall when he was in Compton and talking to a nigga from Peru. He'd be like, remember that day, blood? We was at the Walgreens. There has never been a Walgreens in Compton in my whole life. He'll say Rosecrans and Central, so I know he's talking about the Rite Aid. But for a nigga who don't know the environment, who don't know where he was at, what he actually saw, a Rite Aid could quickly turn into a Walgreens. When there's only Rite Aids and CVS's in Compton, there are no Walgreens throughout the whole diameter, that circumference of that motherfucker. But these are things that you naturally will be aware of if you were familiar with the environment, that someone who's not familiar with the environment, who try to talk like they are, will say that's off base. He has another clip that I'm I find very ironic off No Jumper. Shout out to Adam, where Adam, I think it's the same clip, where Adam questioned him about what I was saying. His response was, I just want to know how a dude who ain't from Pacoima know what a dude from Pacoima do in Pacoima. When he had the nerve and the audacity to say that bullshit, I said, bro, if you just take that logic and apply it to your whole presence on the internet, how do you know what any nigga do anywhere outside of Pacoima, nigga? You apparently are the self-appointed expert on what every nigga do in every borough, every ghetto, every hood, everywhere across the United States. But you had the nerve to question how I could have any knowledge of what a Pacoima guy does in Pacoima. Does that logic not resonate with you as ridiculous as
It definitely sounds like a double standard.
the worst thing that any person, including Wack100, who has been at the forefront of trying to assassinate my character upon line, has ever been able to utter about me is not me, but your brother is a snitch. And as much as they cannot prove that, I take that as a badge of honor when we on this public platform and people are throwing accusations and throwing facts and shooting shots and saying who is who and this is that. And in order to attempt to assassinate my character, if you have to go outside of me as an individual, that means I'm stump tight bulletproof with this shit. And they still can't even give you no evidence of my brother being a rat. Shout out to Big SPI, free the SPIs, 1, 2, and 4. I'm the third for those that don't know, on my mama. But yeah, I take pride in that. If you are internet expert, you a hip hop expert, West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, you know the shit. The worst thing that you ever heard him say about me is what? My brother a rat, right?
I've heard that, yes.
What,
But I mean, that was just
but
from the music, though.
no,
I'm gonna be honest. I just heard that from music. I don't.
but outside of that, you know about you one of the staples out here, and I want to salute you that you humble as. But I don't want to put no details on it. But you're right where you projected yourself to be right about now. But all I'm saying is free SPI. I love cuz I'm not saying he no rat. I'm just saying when it comes to me as a public figure and people trying to tear down people's characters and their history, I take pride in the fact that when they come to trying to discredit me, they have to go outside of my actual, I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like a preacher. So if Cam ain't gonna say amen, amen, let the church say amen.
No, I hear what you're saying,
I
man.
know as a content creator, I had to
worst
learn
things,
this. No matter how friendly or brotherly you become, they have somewhat of obligation to remain neutral in order to maintain the integrity of their platform, keep it expanding, and keep everything. And I've learned that. So I ain't gonna try to drag you on my side of the argument.
Nah, I was gonna agree with you that the worst things that people say about you is usually like you made them mad about something. It's not really like spiders. Not anything that would be really bad. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
why I don't, when I see a title with my name in it that's negative, or somebody send me something, I never watch it. Because what I'm aware of before I'm aware of what anyone says about me, there is no reality that is actually true about me that I'm ashamed of. So if you would say anything negative about me that put me in a bad light that would cause me to be shameful, it's untrue. So I know my whole reality, and I accept it all. I'm proud of it all. The wins, the losses, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bad. I'm still willing to present my reality as who I am. And so unless you deviate from that, you can't say nothing about me that I have a problem with. Just keep it a Google. Keep it factual. And I don't mind you telling anything you know about me. That's whoever you are. Now, if you're going to lie, that's another situation. I do get somewhat of an irritation when there's a lack of honesty involved in discussing my actual existence.
One of the things that happened since our last interview was that Young Buck got in a fight with Little Sody. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to the Crips.
I think they were out there in Memphis, or not Memphis, Nashville, when this happened. And one of the things that I was kind of surprised when I seen, I think a lot of people were kind of surprised, is when Young Buck responded to it.
Rest in peace to Lil Sody, man.
Rest in peace, Little Sody, for sure, man. What Young Buck said, he said, "Y'all tried to jump me though. I came to show love. This Nashville first and always neighborhood 60." So I think a lot of people were surprised when he put that in the caption of his post.
The only person that wasn't surprised was he himself. We all were surprised. It's behooving. Well, I don't even know if that word is applicable, but it is like flabbergasting that he would feel comfortable not only announcing the event, but classifying himself as a neighborhood Crip is hilarious to me. I know David Brown, aka Young Buck Jenner, aka Greg's lover. And I've known him well over the last, what would it be now? Almost 20 years, about 19 years. And prior to him having any affiliation with what he would consider the Rolling 60 neighborhood Crips, his prior affiliation was with the 9-7 East Coasters. And I find it real ironic that when it hit the internet that he and Sodi had that encounter, I hadn't spoke to Sodi in so long that I wasn't even sure that the number that I was about to text was valid. However, I texted him and said, please tell me you beat cuz ass. And rest in peace to young Sodi, Lil Sodi, because his response was, damn, Spider, I ain't know nothing about no 6-0 shit. Last thing I remember was 9-7 East Coast. Then he, shout out to Alex Alonso, then he went on Alex Alonso's platform shortly before he passed and said the same thing. So I don't have to really say it for myself because, Young Buck used to claim the hood. I took him to the set with 6 figures worth of jury on, and he took the pass to be from the set and then turned around and ran off and claimed another hood, which really indicates that pass he got, we should have robbed him that night when I had him on 97 with all that jury on, because now you from another gang. Even though you was just an honorary member, you ranked off. How quick is you gonna run off? That's how easy it takes for a nigga to run off. That little bit of pressure. You don't remember this? Me teaching you how to. Remember? On the bus all day, you would just get out the blue light. Am I doing it right? Remember? Yeah. I have to take responsibility as someone that allowed him to assume honorary membership without actually securing it outside of providing me with something that I consider a dream come true. I don't think that him putting me in touch with the network, which was mainstream industry, was equal compensation for me allowing him to affiliate himself with my neighborhood. So I think that was a mistake on my behalf. I think it's a mistake that a lot have made since then. And that's about all I can add. Even though I did do it, I should have never allowed him to affiliate himself with my set or my section based upon our business affiliation.
So can you kind of break that down? How did all that come together? And you know what I'm saying? What was all that?
When I met Young Buck, I met Young Buck Jenner through mutual acquaintances. And none of them outside of my brother, who was the actual person who knew his people, were Crips. His people from Cashville, Nashville, knew my brother and some of our other people from LA, which caused my brother to travel to Nashville to do his own get down with some of Young Buck's acquaintances. Young Buck was on tour promoting, no, not yet. So I was in Atlanta, Georgia, actually, at the time, doing my own thing, in the midst of a sibling rivalry, as a matter of fact, with Big Spider, my father's son, my brother. We was kind of like on a page, like he was in Nashville, I was in Atlanta, and we was kind of on some like, I'm gonna show you, nigga, I'm finna be balling. We was on our own 2 little missions. But throughout that process, he used to call me and say shit like this. Like, cuz, I'm in Nashville, this nigga Lil Buck pull up in front of the projects, it's 30 niggas outside. He tell me to get in the 6 deuce and we pull off. I'm with this nigga every day. Now at the time, it was G Unit was the biggest shit on TV. I didn't have a personal interest in G Unit, but I had a general awareness of their status in the industry. And when he kept telling me this repetitively, it eventually led to me telling my brother, well, cuz, if it's like that, cuz, have cuz call my phone. And my brother, Spider, trying to prove to me it was actually like he said it was. Very shortly thereafter, he had Young Buck on the phone with me telling me shit like this. Man, I'm already with you, homie. Your brother out here getting my hood right. This how Young Buck was on some hood shit. He told me, I'm with you, homie. Your brother out here getting my hood right. So my brother was already telling me some of the events that were going on to make him say something that ignorant to me, when my interest in talking to him is $1 million-billion interest. His introduction to me on the phone to show me he has some respect to me was saying something as insignificant as, your brother is getting my hood right. So it just so happened that Young Buck took off on his Straight Outta Cashville tour shortly thereafter, while I was in Atlanta and my brother was in Nashville with some of his affiliates / acquaintances. So while he was on that tour, the G Unit spinner happened to get taken in Chicago. Shout out to my homie Godfather on my mama. Please ask me about that again later. I need to do some clarification because there's some lies permeating about that story coming from 50 Cent and Tony Yayo right now. But anyway, the G Unit spinner had gotten taken like 2 days before my brother's affiliates in Nashville came to Atlanta under the guise of Young Buck's tour was headed to Atlanta shortly. I was already there. So they came in anticipation. Buck could be here shortly. Your brother already in Atlanta. We finna go with him. When Buck get to town, we can kick it and hang out. These niggas is trying to prove, my brother trying to prove to me what he been telling me, how tied in he actually is with Young Buck outside of that one phone call. Buck coming to Atlanta, you in Atlanta, Nashville and Atlanta is like Rialto in LA. Watch this, I'm finna pull up. So that was the energy. While that was in play, the chain got taken in Chicago. Buck was scheduled to be in Atlanta that week. I think he skipped Milwaukee or something like that and came straight to Atlanta after trying to track down his chain. The way fate would have it, when Young Buck actually got to Atlanta, Georgia, I believe his schedule made it to where he had to go straight to the radio station. But a large portion of his entourage went to his actual hotel room, which included my brother and the he knew from Nashville. So when Young Buck first got to his hotel room, I happened to be in it before he was in it. And I'm in it in a room full of a whole bunch of people that he knows. I'm like a fly on the wall as far as him not knowing me. So he walks in this hotel room, fresh in town from Atlanta, fresh from the radio, fresh from the last couple of days the chain had got taken from D-Tay. I seen you just had the yellow fella on your platform. Shout out to D-Tay, man. That's my broski. We've been through a lot. We know a lot of the same shit. But anyway, D-Tay had just had the chain taken in Chicago. This is how I met Buck. He walked into the hotel room, hadn't been able to get in touch with 50 Cent in the last couple of days because 50 Cent position, once the chain was taken, I don't want to talk to you on the phone, Buck. I'll talk to you when I see you. So Buck's anxiety is at an all-time high. He walks in this hotel room. He wants to tell his entourage about this chain. I'm just a nigga in the corner. Don't know him. Don't even know the majority of people in this room. So he goes on this passionate presentation about the moment D-Tay came and woke him up out his bed, asked him could he wear the chain. He told this detailed story from that moment all the way up until the next day where he skipped his flight, went back to the radio station, and went through a whole process at a concert. That's why I shout out Godfather. He been my homie ever since. He tried to track the chain down. So in the process of him telling this story to his homeboys and his road management team, I'm sitting in the corner listening, and out of nowhere, a cappella, I just start drowning him out rapping. This is how I met Young Buck.
Okay. So at this point, you go to try to get the chain back? I take it?
Once he heard what happened, once I did the rap shit, I rapped until I hadn't reached my capacity of memorized rhymes. I was still rapping. He stopped me, he interrupted me, saying things, and I quote, "Oh, What the? Them is just words. Everybody know the same words. How you move a nigga with words like that? Everybody be on me with that Pac shit. Dad, you got it. Your shit got to shake. I can't believe you ain't got no situation. If my folks can't make your situation shake, I'm gonna find some folks to make your situation shake. You got it. So that was his response. And based on Young Buck at that time was affiliated with the level of the game he was, that was the level of relief I had at that moment. Like, okay, I didn't convince this dude of this, that. So bam. Uh, very shortly thereafter, on the same evening, I was involved in multiple conversations over the telephone regarding that chain. Not only with the gang, aka Jason Taylor, aka the bitch boy, aka Doja. I was in conversation with him about the chain. I also talked to the big homie Godfather from Chicago about the chain. I spoke to J.O. Felony about the chain because only reason I reached out to J.O. Felony because Buck said he saw some made men chains at this concert and that caused him to be nervous. I knew the homie J.O. Nightbud, Siete, had did a collaboration with the made men shit back in the day. And I was just trying to show Buck I had some influence on what as much of the shit that he mentioned. And then Suge Knight name came up with the nigga Godfather from Chicago. And Godfather had some influence over this chain coming back. And when I got on the phone with Godfather, I had just met Young Buck less than a couple hours ago. And I've been on the phone ever since politicking about this chain, which caused me to cross paths with this grown ass nigga from Chicago named Godfather. And when I jump on the phone trying to beat my chest, I let him know I'm Baby Spider from 97 East Coast. I'm from LA and I got some interest in that chain being taken in Chicago. His response to that was, well, if you're from LA, you need to know when I get to LA, I tap in with niggas like Suge Knight, trying to let me know how heavy he was out here in these streets. So you know, I'm 2 days away from being on Suge label. So I take my chance of going big. Even though I'm on the ops team now, I took my chance telling him with extras on it, well, if you tap in with Suge Knight, ask him about Baby Spider from 97th Street, wooty, 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 woo, woo. I put extras on it. And hours later that day, shout out to Godfather, he my nigga to this day. We've been reunited. He called Young Buck and told Young Buck that don't worry about it. You're going to get that chain back and you can thank that Spider nigga. Confirming to me he had tapped in with Suge and Suge with all the ability to salt my little shit up. Instead, he stamped it, confirmed it, and then his constituent, his affiliate. I talked to Godfather the other day. He told me this though, because we was recounting this story. He was like, yeah, I talked to Suge, but that wasn't where I stopped. He said, I talked to a gang of people that day. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm thinking Suge did all the stamping, but he let me know this shit happened way back in 04. He just let me know 19 years later this year that Suge wasn't the only person he talked to that day. But just so y'all know, I've told this story multiple times on my platform or in interviews. And in more recent days, maybe about 2 years ago, I told the story. And someone popped up in my DM telling me like, hey, Spider, I'm Wooty Woo from Chicago. I don't want to misquote if they GD, BD. He like, I'm from Wooty Woo. He said, the nigga you talking about in that story is my daddy. I could put you in touch with him. I'm like, you lying. So this is a grown ass man. And I can recall when I first met Godfather back then over the phone, he explained to me how he was an inactive gang member, but the structure in the organization in Chicago dictated that when he took his son to a Chicago Bulls game, he had to purchase like 19 tickets just to make sure his gang wouldn't allow him to go in public without that much security around him. That was their structure. The little boy was about 8 or 9. So when the nigga popped up in my DM 15 years later, the grown ass man, I'm like, that's the nigga he was talking about that he had to buy 19 tickets to take him to a Chicago Bulls game. So we've all recently collabed on a couple of even business ventures. Shout out to Godfather and his son. I can't think of his son's name, but I appreciate the full circle of that relationship. And that is actually how the G Unit spinner was returned to home base. The two snitch brothers, the Mexicans that was tapped in, had nothing to do with the return of that chain whatsoever. I don't know. I believe 50 has some interest in pumping up their profile to sell some type of episode he has with them on one of his TV ventures. However, they're rats and they had no involvement in that chain coming back. I've even seen Tony Yayo on some pretty big podcasts expressing that the chain came back because these two twin El Chapo associates sent the drought to the streets of Chicago in order to bring that chain back. I'm here to tell you on my mama, facts over feelings, that is the furthest thing from the truth. I was very personally involved with that chain coming back, and I might have to invite my boy Godfather. I might have to set up an interview with you and Godfather Cam so you can get the full story.
You know, there's been something I've kind of wondered about, man, that I don't really see as much as I used to see. And that's low riding and low riders. I don't see them in LA like I used to.
I've noticed the same thing, and I believe it's a culture that just hasn't transcended to the newer generations. It's not picking up in the rates equivalent to previous generations. And at least amongst the blacks, I believe it's something that is going to become very niche or extinct within the next couple of decades. You know, the lowriding culture appreciates old classic in the process of restoration and building. The new generation is on foreign, digital, pre-built. It's a whole nother interest when it comes to vehicles.
Man.
There's so many versions of things that we appreciate that are no longer appreciated by our people that have come after us. It's like sometimes we just have to appreciate the moment and the things that we appreciate and realize the next generation don't give a about it. There are a lot of things that are going that way.
Yeah, I've noticed, man. I don't see the lowriders. They're not in the music videos, and everything's completely different.
It's almost now when you bring it back, you doing the new thing. He's going retro with the lowrider used to be like a staple, and now it's like, okay, I can appreciate a lowrider because I don't see him no more.
Yeah. Another thing I've been seeing guys wearing really baggy pants.
I figured that was going to make a comeback to some extent. I'm not surprised. But I also am aware that when we see clips from the 70s and shit, they was wearing tight shit. So it just reminds you of the cycle. Tight shit was so much the thing that it's rumored that even preachers used to wear specifically tight pants and stuff it to attract females in the fucking congregation. So tight was something that had logic behind it at one point for as attracting the opposite sex.
Damn.
Just think Marvin Gaye or any of that light, if they weren't naturally endowed, just think the motivation to overcompensate there if you're on stage being a sex symbol.
Yeah.
But so if you could understand it in a Marvin Gaye type, just think how many preachers, even though we didn't think about it, was under the same shit. They trying to fuck everything in the congregation.
I hear that. Okay. I mean, growing up, man, tight clothes were just like such a no-no that it was like kind of when the shift happened, it was just kind of hard to really like wrap your head around it. Like, what the is going on?
It was
like,
so hard for me because
crazy.
it came almost simultaneously with the Mohawk, and it was all happening at once. It was like, what the are they going through? They probably should have took one element at a time. But when you came with the tight shit, the Mohawk, and they was trying to wear man purses all at once, I just had to steer clear. I remember being in a room at one of my children's school events, And I realized I was the only person in the room that looked like I got my shit at the swap meet. I had the plaid shirt, the box square baggy look. And at that point, I finally started trying to conform to some of the more current styles myself. But I was stuck in that old shit. I was like one of the last niggas to get about that just regular old West Coast LA style. Even though before I was one of the first niggas to be dressing outside of that. It's before just the G shit was a norm. I remember my brother Big Spider being in the halfway house in the 90s and me coming to visit him and him seeing the way I dress and be like, man, I need me some word up shit like this. He used to call it word up shit because I used to wear Brand X Jabos and shit like that. And he used to be like, you wear that word up shit. That's how he called it. Now, and since then, he become one of the flyest Crips known to the streets. But at first, he used to call the way I dress word up shit. Like, you got all that word up shit, cuz I need to see some of that word up shit. Crap. Free the SPIs, cuz 1, 2, and 4 on the set.
Charleston White. I seen you guys have kind of had some disagreements online, I think, for the lack of better words, or, but recently he was confronted. He was supposed to do a boxing match, but he ended up macing the dude that he was going to do the boxing match with, so he got disqualified from doing the boxing match. But I guess he still showed up. Some dudes were kind of pressing him about Nipsey Hussle, and he maces him or pepper sprays him.
It's my thing, bro. Nipsey is dead. Died violently. Charleston White has been quite explicitly disrespectful toward the legacy. I don't understand any individual that feels disrespected by what Charleston White has said about Nipsey, and they feel like they have any intent on exacting revenge. Charleston White has made it clear how he gets down. I don't understand any individual who is not sneaking up like they want a picture and getting close enough to attack. If you do anything other than that, you don't really want to do nothing. At this point, he's made it obvious. Even the cats that was talking, man, keep this name out your mouth. They was supposed to be walking up laughing, talking about, man, you that nigga, these niggas scared of you, Charleston. Man, let me get a picture, man. My baby mama gonna love this. That's how you slide up on him to exact what you trying to get at him with. He takes those pictures all day, every day. So anybody that's approaching him other than that, I have to question their intentions on actually doing something to him.
They say that the streets took an L with this one.
Well, it seemed like I can't verify or validate how much of the streets those individuals involved are. That's just the internet declaring that. And I can't really say the internet can dictate what the streets, when the streets take a L or a W. So you're quoting the internet by large. However, I can say it wasn't an L for Charleston. So I don't know if he was up against the streets, if he was up against these individuals, but he didn't take no L.
Not this time.
I have yet to see him take a public L.
Yeah, Charleston took a few L's, man. I gotta think.
Name one.
Put me on the spot, man.
I've yet to see it. Only thing I have against Charleston is how disrespectful he talked about my personal friend, neighborhood Nipsey, and one of the most influential members of a movement that I've pledged my life to, which is Crip and Raymond Washington. Outside of that, I have very little things to disagree with Charleston about.
Something that we never touched on that I've been wanting to ask you about was there's a video of you at the West Coast Peace Conference where you're talking to Snoop. It kind of looks like you finesse your way in. You know what I'm saying? You tell him like, oh yeah, game. That's I'm cool with him, and you know what I'm saying. Kind of get in there, man. Can you kind of break down what was going on in that video?
Yeah, what actually took place that day. Shout out to my Solo. I think his name is also Franklin on GTA. He's become like a superstar via the character on Grand Theft Auto. He's been a part of that franchise for quite some years, but that happens to be my homeboy from 11A East Coast, who is also notoriously known for the encounter with Ice Cube, where the W chain was displaced or whatever. He's also a brother of the legendary producer Wino from 190 East Coast, who did a lot of Coolio's work and also helped me experience my introduction to the actual industry on an independent level with a lot of notable artists like Trey D, Sibo, Yuckmouth, Jail Felony. I could go on. Drace to the Gangster that I was exposed to, Trey D, throughout with the homie Wino. Him and Solo happened to be brothers. And what just so happened was I was signed at that G Unit. I was signed to G Unit at that time. It had not been that long that I had been signed. And I guess Solo had just left that event. And when he was leaving that event that had been taking place for quite some time, he called me and asked me why I wasn't there. And he became aware that I was totally unaware that that event was even taking place. And he was telling me like, cuz, what? Did nobody tell you? He was like, cuz, the whole West Coast is having a peace conference up at the Wooty Whoop Hotel. He said it started at such and such time, which was like 1 p.m. When he called me, it was like 2 p.m. He was like, they still up there, cuz. So myself and my cameraman, we shot up there. And so the footage you seen, that's the knowledge I had. It was at the Universal Sheraton, if you're familiar with the landscape of how that's set up. And there's footage of me bumping into the security guard. I think he was a Long Beach Crip that was holding the door down. And he kind of questioned me about game and all that. In the internet comments, it seemed like people were so proud of his line of questioning, even though he didn't impede my intentions of getting through the door, which that's all I was interested in doing. However, when I got through the door, I made the opportunity to approach Snoop Dogg about a bit of music that I had recorded when I was affiliated with Suge Knight that I just considered personally would be something that I should address because I allowed myself to be manipulated to not only diss Snoop Dogg, but say things derogatory toward his mother, a black queen that not only did I not know, but I had no right to speak derogatory of, but just the pressure of being in the studio with Suge at the moment and him suggesting it, I went along with it. And when I encountered being signed by G Unit, I just naturally was inclined to say, damn, I know they DPG Unit, both sides speak highly of each other. I felt like the opportunity might come where that would become a conflict of interest. So I felt like as a man, as a loc, as a Crip, I owed it to Snoop to approach him about that and attempt to bury the hatchet. I wasn't even sure because of the level Suge Knight was in the game. I wasn't even 100% sure that Snoop was even aware of the music. Now I look back, I can see, I'm sure he was. But back then I was thinking that he was so big and that the soundtrack was so small that he may have never even heard it. So when I approached him that day at the conference, I was just trying to go out my way to apologize to him for speaking disrespectful upon his beautiful mother and let him know I didn't have no cause at all and just letting him know how I felt under the influence of the environment in the moment and just hoping that he would find it in his heart to forgive me. And he seemingly was readily forgiving at the moment. You know, you can see the exchange we had. It seemed sincere. He told me it wasn't nothing. He advised me just keep it cripping from that point forward. And then we had a number of positive interactions after that.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So when you go to this conference, was Game still in G Unit at the time, or did Game leave and was there any issues going on?
No, Game was still G Unit. However, I can recall not only Game, but Snoop also addressing the crowd with advice that was just generally derogatory toward the East Coast in their appeal for us as West Coast. Not us, because I wasn't included. I just popped up. But in their appeal for the West Coast to unite, there was a lot of general conversation about negativity toward the East Coast. And I'll just say that. But I believe Game was still G Unit. If you've seen the footage, you'll see that how I stood close to the stage and Mad Dog Game until he acknowledged me. And he kept walking with the mic, crossing my energy till he finally like, Spider Loc, I see you over there. So there was I believe he was still on G Unit. I can't quite place this, kind of a blur, but I believe, he was still on G Unit.
Okay, and now you and Snoop, you guys squash things, and then Game leaves G Unit, and the beefing starts. Now, how does this affect everything with you and Snoop? And did 50 ever ask you not to get involved in the beef?
He most definitely did. And, I didn't leave him a lot of time to ask me that multiple times. He may have mentioned it more than once. However, Game was going so hard with the G Unit disrespect, and he was pushing the GU not, and me and my peoples was doing this so hard. There is nobody that can stop me from responding eventually. He initially was doing diss records, trying to diss the whole G Unit camp. And in the same record, he would send positive messages toward me. I tried to accept that. But with my mentality, that's like, I'm from East Side, East Coast. Traditionally, historically. How do I hear you diss the set because you got a problem with the homie? A personal problem, but all I'm gonna do is keep hearing you diss the set. So that's the general mind frame that kicked in. You can't keep excluding me, but you dissing the set. We pushing this, and we here local. So that's what motivated my involvement. At the same time, I came into the camp where 50 Cent was continuously, constantly, consistently complaining about a lack of loyalty on Doja's behalf. So with everything else I brought to the table, naturally, of course, I was gonna put a real stamp on my natural brand of loyalty. So all that played in at the same time.
Okay, and so when this happens, Snoop and Game are really tight at this point. I've seen some stuff on the internet.
Unbeknownst to me, they were that tight because the moment came where he did an interview. I believe it was, I can't say it was Ghazi. I forget who West Coast Riders was before they became Empire, who was the key players. It's another name. But one of these cats was interviewing, I think his name was Nemo, something like that. He was interviewing Snoop, and he asked him about the aftermath of that conference. Almost seemed like a setup question because because he was like, how's the thing since your conference, Snoop? And Snoop kind of responded like, oh, everything's been good. And then the dude was like, because Spider Loc was there, and immediately Snoop responded like, man, that nigga and that bullshit. All right, Game my homeboy. Spider Loc ain't sold no records, need to be cool with everybody. Everything come through me out here on the West Coast. It's just like that. G Unit can't save you, cuz. Game my homeboy. Spider need to be cool with everybody. He ain't need to be dissing nobody. So this is how me and Snoop went from me humbly approaching him about what I had done in the past and us squashing it and us having multiple positive interactions, even direct phone calls. We had each other's number, bumped into each other multiple times in public. Everything was kosher until I looked up on the internet and he had that exchange about me and Game. Then he went on to do a Don King impersonation and try to promote or instigate one of these celebrity boxing matches that we see common now. He was the first one to bring that up with me and Game name way back then. And it's crazy you brought that up because since then, I've been on a hiatus of 7 years, come back in the game. And when I came back after the 7 years, I definitely assumed that all that transpired was, under the bridge. And I've made multiple attempts to reach out to Snoop Dogg and rekindle a connection that we had on some Crip shit. What people don't realize, even after that peace conference, he and I shared the stage at the Video Game Awards, exchanged pleasantries very casually, cordially. So I just figured when I came off my hiatus that it would be a possible way to pick up where we left off or to repair or mend whatever positive connection we ever had, but I experienced difficulty. I went through a lot of trustful, reliable sources and could never get any type of positive feedback from him.
So to rewind a little bit, Snoop does these interviews. Well, you guys squash things. You guys work together a little bit. You're with G Unit. I believe you guys do a song. It's supposed to be on
On
your
my
first
album,
project with G Unit, and then you start going that game.
yeah,
And now Snoop is kind of dissing you. You know what I'm saying? Saying he's with Game. And do you feel like that your issues with Snoop influenced 50 Cent to move away from you?
definitely. I was so naive at one point. I can remember being overseas and speaking to Snoop Dogg for a number of hours on the phone, and he talking to me on some Crip shit, grieving, airing out grievances and negativities about 50 Cent, comparing his status and 50 Cent status, placing himself here, placing 50 here, and telling me these things. And I'm so naive. I'm on the phone talking to Snoop, and then as soon as I'm off the phone, I go to 50 room and tell him what Snoop just said, thinking that I was a G Unit family member, affiliate, talking to the general about art, what's going on in the interactions. And my dumb ass found myself on outside of a relationship that two superstars maintain. They never skipped a beat. And when you break it all down to it, I was going at Doja game based on G Unit, which is synonymous with 50 Cent. And how can I become the outsider and these two dudes never skipped a beat? That blows my mind.
Damn. Okay.
He told me, nigga, Spider Loc ain't sold no records. He need to be cool with everybody. He said, I got the West Coast on lock. Everything go through me. It's just like that. And then he sealed it off with, G Unit can't say you, cuz. I ain't gonna lie, cuz knew what he was talking about, cuz pushed his line on me with this industry cripping shit, cuz. I mean, he just did what he did. He did his shit. Oh, look.
And now, at one point, you try to leave and work with Mac 10?
What happened was Mac 10 and myself both had the same lawyer. Same lawyer as E40 and others as well. Bob Lieberman, Robert Lieberman. And I believe that caused, I had an interaction with Mac 10 prior to that because he put out a West Side Connection album, and I got some credits on the album, just to say that. So it wasn't my initial encounter with Mac 10. There was some controversy with that production. However, once I was outside the G Unit and the Beautiful campaign was in effect, I can recall being surprised getting a call from Mac 10 one day and him expressing interest in being involved in my situation. And the way he proposed it was, what's going on? I can tell they got you on the back burner. Tell 50, all he had to do was leave the G Unit stamp on it, let me and Brian Turner come in and actually do the work and put the music out and do the promotion. And let's do a collab, which whatever 50 was confused about or had a lack of interest in, here it is. I brought not only two other, seasoned experts in the industry, they're also more acclimated to the West Coast genre, and they have history similar to yours, and they also have another bag. I brought that to the table. And 50's initial response was, well, it sounds like a good idea, but what's the plan? My response was, I don't know the plan, but Mac 10 knows the plan. Can I get a conversation going? And I was unsuccessful and able to connect in a conference call. So therefore, shout out to G Malone, Mac 10 took that initial, immediate financial interest he had, and we saw the campaign that he went forward with G Malone. That was the bag that he was trying to blow on my situation. And I was not able to connect him with the source, which is 50 Cent, because he was just unwilling to entertain the conversation on any professional level. And subsequently, Mac 10 had to take his investment elsewhere.
At one point, 50 Cent just stops communicating with you. Is that what happens? He just completely stops talking to you. Does everybody stop talking to you? You know, Young Buck, everybody, and you don't have no idea what's going on.
I won't include Buck because Buck had already went through what he went through. But all the other relationships, I don't care how close they were as far as artists or entourage. It was obvious and apparent that there was a meeting that I did not make, and certain things was made clear. Because if you can imagine, 50's one person, but he generated a enclave of vast amount of individuals developing their own relationships and connections based upon him bringing us all together. And simultaneously, like a light switch, all that shit was changing. You know, take a rocket scientist, let him know his interest had shifted toward me, and then he expressed it to his circle as well.
Okay, so this happens,
but he didn't express it to me though. But when it started to be difficult to get in touch with him, it was equally as difficult to get in touch with the majority of his constituents, all at the same time. People who
all
were
at the same time. Okay.
People who were over available and ready to be in contact and communication with you.
Is there anything that you feel like particular to set this off? Like,
I believe it's a number of things. Primarily, I believe the thing that, what he expressed at one point was, when I first met him, like I said, I drowned him out in the middle of him having a very important conversation. I drowned him out by rapping, changed his whole focus. He offered me the deal. I happened to have on a tank top, a wife beater that day. After he offered me the deal, exchanged my numbers and all that, he grabbed my belly and said, "We got to get rid of this." There came to a point in our experience, in our interactions, where I hadn't seen him in a while, walked up on him to give him a hug and a dap. He grabbed my belly and said, "This is why you can't get no more money." That's the part he never telling. He gonna tell you it's about a record and all that, but that's our actual experience. It's the only thing he has ever expressed a lack of satisfaction in my performance was I didn't have enough rhythm for him on stage as far as having some type of dance step or movement, and the fact that I wasn't athletic enough or sexy enough when I took my shirt off. I actually went through the process in 2006 of him hearing a new addition to my catalog of records and him actually going berserk, losing his mind in front of others, namely Puto, my broski from Great 3 up top to Puto, and then my brother Turtle, who's rest in peace, who is not here to confirm. However, 50 tackled me, proclaimed my album was ready for the shelf, $16.99. Spider fixed his album is ready in 2006 at his home in Connecticut in the studio. So the things that he's taken upon himself to express about our experience, that I didn't have a record as being the reason why we couldn't move forward, are totally false.
Well, he was supposed to help you put out your single, Beautiful, right?
Correct. He called me at one point without me initiating the conversation and letting me know, "Hey, yo, B, you know you got a record, B. You know you got a joint. Look like you spent $250,000 on that video, B," referring to the Beautiful record. And he proposed a whole promotional rollout and campaign, how he planned to get behind the record and take it to the next level, and he never followed up.
From your point of view, what did you see going on when Game fell out with 50 and all that happened?
Well, my perspective on that came from me knowing Game outside of him knowing 50 Cent initially. He didn't know 50 Cent. I knew him. We were homies, partners, friends, or whatever. Then there was a day when I was just living my life locally in LA. I can remember listening to like Power 106 in the morning, and 50 Cent and G Unit was on the radio, and they was telling Big Boy, like, "Man, we out here looking for Game. We want him to come home and sign the G Unit." At this time, Game didn't know 50 Cent, but he was signed to Aftermath, and he was kind of disgruntled. His comment statements to me and others in his immediate circle were, "I don't give a f if Dre drop me tomorrow, then Puffy gonna sign me the next day." Shout out to D-Mac from Mansfield because he was in a business relationship with D-Mac and I believe Baron Davis, who had a previous relationship with Puffy that had him confident that if Dre no longer had interest in his career, that Puffy would assume some interest. So that was just a common thing that Game used to say at that time. And then I can recall me calling him when I heard 50 and G Unit on the radio saying, "Hey nigga, 50 out here on the radio saying whoopty whoop." And he was like, "Man, I'm at the airport finna go on this plane." He was like, "Man, but them niggas, man." He was like, "They just want me on the team so they can have the whole West Coast on lock." He was like, "Spider, nigga, I'm 50 Cent. You 50 Cent, nigga." He was like, "I'm Eminem. You Eminem. I'm Dr. Dre. You Dr. Dre." He said, "I'd never sign that nigga or be up under no nigga like that." Which I ain't gonna lie, that confidence and that passion, it resonated for a moment. But I'm still thinking like, man, you on some bullshit. And lo and behold, very shortly thereafter, it was obvious, announced headlines that he had signed the G Unit. And me being personally acquainted with him, he had shifted his whole tune, shifted his whole tone, and told me that, 50 Cent was the realest nigga he ever met in the industry. Da 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 da. He was singing his praises. I cannot quite guesstimate or estimate the amount of time that lasted, but I can remember it wasn't that long when his expression and his sentiments changed to, "Oh, I finally figured out it's all good, but it's just business. As long as the business cool, it ain't nothing deeper than that." And then once, I was also noting throughout the whole process his lack of effort to ever introduce me to anyone that could be considered as a promotion or escalation in my situation. When I watched him do this for others, like Black Friday, Life, G Malone, even though I had known him longer, what I would consider better qualified, I watched him not include me in any promotional scenario as an artist, even though I was a friend. I tolerated that for quite some time. So I can recall when I finally stumbled up on my own G Unit potential opportunities and expressed them to him, is when he started telling me that he had intentions on knocking that down. It wasn't going to last long. They're about to meet their end. That wouldn't be wise. However, I became on board before he actually launched his campaign. So if I felt like there was a relationship between he and I to respect before he started GU knotting, he should have never did it because I was GU knitting it. And he didn't respect the relationship enough to GU knot. So it was like,
Now, I think I seen you say somewhere that he had a Sean John campaign
yeah,
before he started wearing the G Unit stuff.
Very shortly
and
after,
that kind of rubbed 50 the wrong way.
Yeah, very shortly after he dropped his debut album, he had a Sean John campaign tour. I believe he was on Sunset, one of them big boulevards. He had and Sean John shit at the height of the G Unit clothing situation, and 50 took that as a point, tension, and I just wasn't surprised at that based on I was aware long before he even signed the G Unit deal that he was banking on if Dre lost interest, Puffy was going to assume interest. So when I saw the Sean John campaign, I knew that was based on a relationship that his handlers had with Puffy prior to him signing the G Unit. But of course, 50 didn't appreciate it. Puffy's always been his rival or competitor, with this CEO hip hop shit.
Yeah, they've had a rivalry. It's been every once in a while he'll just say some shit about Puffy.
Yeah, but 50's assumed a rivalry with anyone at a status that is similar to where he aspired to ascertain, regardless if it was personal enough or not. He used that as motivation to try to get there. And then we see that once he reaches certain plateaus, he does have the maturity not to be derogatory to certain individuals, but regardless of who you were, it seemed like if you was at a level he was trying to reach, he'd go at you aggressively.
Yeah, for sure. Being from LA, man, one of the things that people, might talk about is like, I interviewed Crip Mac, and he talked about some of the most dangerous burger spots in LA. What are some of the most dangerous burger spots in LA?
I say Master Burger, yeah, where I go all the time. Master Burger.
What is it about Master Burger that makes it so dangerous?
Mr. Hart is in the heart of a dangerous ass neighborhood Crip hood. The 40s, the Spody 40s, the rolling 40 Crips on hood. That shit right there is dangerous. Motherfuckers come through the alley and bust on you. They can come through the front. I even watch, see how I watch with the cars when they come through like that. That's all you gotta do is pull your window down, come, bust straight through the gate and shoot a nigga right in the chest on West Side Rolling. So you see in the video, always watch how the streets are with the cars. This shit get Mickey and tricky, cuz trying to get a real nifty burger. I was there at Master Burgers. I remember Lily Cakes told me about a few weeks ago, like she wanted a Master Burger. I never brought her a cack of Master Burger when I would go there, but then now this time I brought her a burger on hood, and she loved it. They got the best burgers at Master Burger, but a lot of people get killed at Master Burger. They call it Murder Burger. A lot of 40 Crips I loved got killed there. That is a dangerous burger spot.
Damn.
On hood.
Murder Burger. That's crazy, man. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You felt like that was the most dangerous spot. Now, from your perspective, what do you think are like some of the most dangerous burger spots in LA?
Historically, I think Quick and Split on Normandy was one. What is it? On Western. On Normandy. Quick and Split on Normandy, I think that was one. I think Jordan's Diggity Dog on Imperial, across street from the Nickersons was one. BD Burgers on Central and Century has been one for quite some time. It's not quite on Century. It's like on 102nd and Central. I don't believe there's one you can highlight. A1 Burgers on Vernon is one of them spots. I think there's a lot of spots where LA locals have risked their safety in order to get some good grease. There's multiple spots, but those are the name of a few.
You touched on this a little bit earlier about, Crip Mac still going in on the hoods, Do you think that that's why he gets so much hate on the internet?
No, I think the majority of the hate he gets stems from something other than him going at the Hoovers. I don't think it's that many Hoovers or Hoover lovers to substantiate the amount of hate he gets. I think he gets more hate from people who either are familiar with or aware of the normal experience of LA gang members, and they notice the difference in his experience, and they try to disqualify him as official based upon the differences that they're familiar with, even though they're not from the inside of the environment. And that's where the majority of his hate comes, because it's not what they typically are familiar with, which has been commercialized, not knowing it's a million C-Max on every corner in every hood, though. He's very normal in the actual gangbang environment, but when it comes to commercial promotion and public, he stands out. But when you come to the east side or to the hoods, to where the have-nots are, it's a million C-Max. That's why I'm proud to see one shine finally. Happy. Nightbud.
Yeah, for sure.
You fire me?
Not too long ago, I started to get these pictures online, and Snoop has a shop in Inglewood, and you see the before and after, and you see the dudes from Inglewood went to Snoop's shop, and they painted him in red. He did have like a blue suit on, which resembled a blue bandana. Snoop Dogg in blue, Inglewood in blue, and they painted everything red. I guess they didn't appreciate that much blue in the city of Inglewood.
How long was the Forum allowed to stay blue?
How long was what?
The Great Western Forum allowed to stay blue.
Oh, I have no idea.
When we grew up, it was red all my life. It was blue for a number of years. It's back red.
Okay.
It's walking distance from that store.
Right.
It's no surprise, no shock. As big as we all accept Snoop Dogg for being bigger than the gang, cuz of Crip. He already walked at the Super Bowl right there in their hood. Like, goddamn, y'all think you just finna mark out the whole red rag region of I mean, if you want Snoop Dogg to still be a Crip, you got to expect some of that. Otherwise, he ain't no Crip.
Yeah. Is there a point where Snoop gets big enough to where like dudes will give him a pass for doing something like that?
Yeah, yeah. That's why it's kind of shocking. He's that big. That's why we kind of surprised. But then as soon as you get over the shock and surprise, you got to think like, oh, okay, it's gangbanging. And then it
Yeah.
makes sense. But initially, we all surprised and shocked, like, oh, that's Snoop. But then it's Snoop, the Crip. But yeah,
For
he
sure.
has transcended the normal expectations of interactions. You know what I'm saying? He's far bigger than anything that we normally encounter. But if anybody ever calls him to task over that small issue, you can't really say they wrong either.
I hear you. I hear you. One dude who's kind of been making some noise lately is Snoopy Badazz. And I think you kind of had some things to say about him. He went on No Jumper and, you know, he had a crazy interview over there.
It's so much to say about him. If you got anything in particular, the No Jumper interview, my main reaction was that the general YouTube audience seemed to have been impressed or entertained by the fact that he got emotional or verbally aggressive, or his tone seemed to be derogatory when he spoke to the homie Brick Baby Nightbud about Slim 400, rest in peace. And my perspective was what the goofy ass audience was saying about him punking or checking the homie. I respected the idea and the fact that the homie drew a line in the sand and said something to the effect that disrespect towards Slim 400 would not be tolerated. And regardless of how emphatically or emotionally he expressed his compliance, Snoopy Badazz complied and did not disrespect Slim 400. So I don't care if you tell your kids to take your ass to the room. If they stump their feet all the way down the hallway, they still take their ass to the room. So Snoopy Badazz stumped his feet on the way to the room. That's all. And he was proud of it, and it seemed like the goofies on the internet was impressed.
Yeah. You know, you guys have had some issues though, right?
No, nothing personal. What happened actually was Snoopy Badazz. I didn't count Snoopy Badazz because I actually went on a date with a female that was a pyro, and less than a date, we just went to the movies. It was the homegirl. It wasn't just she and I, other people with us, but we was together. And as we walked into the movies, she was taking a phone call, and I heard her say Snoopy Badass's name. This was shortly after he had got put on West Side Pyro and put off in the same day. So when she said his name, I'm like, that's the nigga that's on the internet with you? She's like, yeah.
So, wait. What happened? He got
put on West Side Pyro and put off in the same day. Remember the four squabbles? The four phase you always talk about?
Yeah.
The first two that was putting him on West Side Pyro. The second two that was putting him off. So he got put on and put off in the same day. Rest in peace, Baby Black. Yeah, that's my perspective. That's comedy. If you didn't catch it, that's a joke.
Okay.
But that's how only way you can't look at it when you go to another nigga hood and let him line you up 4 times about some shit you did on text message to another nigga from Pacoima. Well, if you let niggas do you like that, it's equivalent to them putting you on their hood and putting you off the same day because they just let 8 sets of hands knot you up, nigga. You wonder why he running around saying, I'm the only one. That's because you the only one stupid, goofy, dumb enough to get played that way. It's a whole generation of participants that have never experienced that. That don't make you overqualified. It make you underqualified. Make you a goofball, torpedo dummy that went for the okie doke. Thanks to Wack100. You are the biggest loser. Oh, my mama. But yeah, my whole interaction with him was I met him through the homegirl. I was on my way into a movie. Movie takes about 2 hours. Got off the phone real quick. Before the movie was over, my Instagram DM had so many messages from him, primarily requesting for me to sign him to G Unit West. This was like 2018. He was requesting for me to sign him to G Unit West. So I quickly let him know, hey man, we Baymacking, man. Ooh, ooh. So he made a request to sign in the Baymac. I'm like, I was so lost. That's what threw me off. So from that point on, we assumed a normal, cordial, internet-based, friendly relationship. Shout out to my boy CeeLo from 1200. He had Urban City Network at the time, and we were scheduled to interview on the same day. And we happened to meet each other because my interview was scheduled right after his. We photographed together. We talked. We met. We was cool. From that point on, he seemed to be becoming under attack as far as his character from all type of angles on the internet. I was never concerned, interested, nor involved. However, he would take it upon himself to bombard my DM with all these messages and pictures and evidence that would prove, in his opinion, that the people talking bad about him was wrong and he was right. I had no idea about what he was going through, why he was bringing this to me, but I would just see what he was saying and I always say shit like, if you ain't hating, if they ain't talking about you, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't doing nothing. Don't trip, homie. That's why I used to tell him general shit like that. We was cool. Then lo and behold, after some period of time, we've been cool. I posted our picture together a couple of times. Whatever it was, I ended up on a social media platform somewhere trolling Doja, aka Jayceon Taylor, aka the rapper named The Game, which I've been doing for almost multiple decades. And somehow he and I encountered each other on that post, and he just jumped ship and started showing loyalty to Game. After he asked me to sign him to G Unit West in 2018, we all know the legacy of G Unit West when it comes to how Game is regarded. But for some reason, I think when he found himself active on the same social media post as Game within the same minute, he took that as some type of association or affiliation. So when I came along trolling Game, I think he looked at it as an opportunity in front of Game's eyes in his mind to turn on me to try to build an affiliation or alliance. To this day, Game never acknowledged him or nothing, but he told me that he went bad on me out of loyalty for Game after that was our initial experience. So I could do nothing but accept the fact that he turned on me because he's loyal to Game. But who knew that in the midst of all that, he was going to turn out to be this hood-hopping, testifying, statement-giving weirdo that's chasing. Shout out to Tania's baby mama, who is obviously gang tight. She been on soft white underbelly, keeping it true, and he's still comfortable, basically writing Dear John, I love you poems and all that to her, stressing out. He's a different type of dude, bro. Ain't he a rat?
Well, man, Spider, dope interview.
Always, man. Dope questions, dope energy, man. We consistent, not big gaps. Appreciate you, bro. Just don't take so long to call me back.
For sure. We gotta get in it sooner. That's a fact. What's up? This is Cam Capone. We got more content like this coming soon, so hit that like button, subscribe, and stay locked in to Cam Capone News.